The blackness of deep space was endless, stretching far beyond human sight. The Imperial fleet floated in that darkness, their ships shining like blades under a cold sun. It was supposed to be a routine patrol. No battles, no surprises, just another long night in the emptiness between stars. On the bridge of the Obsidian Crown, Captain Varric stood tall, hands behind his back. He was a man carved from steel, a veteran of 20 campaigns. He had fought pirates, rebels, and alien fleets that screamed in languages no one understood. He had seen planets burn. He had seen men die without a sound. But nothing in his long service had prepared him for the thing that appeared on the fleet's long-range scanners that night. It began as a flicker, a faint blip on the edge of detection. At first, the sensor officer thought it was debris, maybe a piece of a broken satellite drifting through space. But then it moved. Slowly, purposefully. "Captain," the officer said, his voice tight, "we have an object on Vector 7. Distance, 1.2 light minutes. No transponder, no ID." Varric didn't turn at once. He stared out the massive viewing window, his eyes scanning the stars. "Show me." The main screen shifted, zooming in on the object. Against the black of space, it was just a darker shadow, a shape that seemed to drink in the light around it. The edges were wrong sharp in some places, smooth in others, as if it had been built by something that didn't care about the rules of design. "It's cold," the sensor officer whispered. "No heat signature, no engine emissions. It's not broadcasting anything, but it's moving. Moving without engines." Varric asked, "Yes, sir. Speed is steady. Direction directly toward us." The bridge fell silent. Even the hum of the ship seemed quieter. Varric stepped closer to the screen. The object was shaped like a ship, yes, but it had no running lights, no visible weapons, no sign of life. And yet, watching it gave him the feeling of standing in front of a predator, one that hadn't decided to strike yet. "Scan it again," he ordered. "Already running full spectrum, sir," the officer said. "It's blocking us. Every scan comes back empty. It's like it's not there." Varric's jaw tightened. In all his years, he had never heard of technology that could erase itself from sensors so completely. Even the most advanced stealth ships left a trace heat ion, trails, gravitational wakes. This left nothing. Then the object turned, not slowly, like a drifting vessel adjusting its course, but sharply, like it had eyes, like it had just noticed them. The crew shifted uncomfortably in their seats. No one spoke. "Time to contact?" Varric asked. 6 minutes, sir." He nodded slowly. "Inform the fleet. Maintain formation. No one fires without my order." Minutes passed like hours. The shadow drew closer, filling more of the screen. It still gave no sign of communication, no light, no noise. Then, without warning, it vanished from the sensors. Gasps filled the bridge. The screen went blank, except for the static stars. "Where is it?" Varric demanded. I don't know, sir." "It's gone." Varric didn't believe it. Things like that didn't just vanish. It was still out there. It was watching, and then it reappeared. This time, it wasn't a distant shadow. It was close, far too close. So close that the Obsidian Crown's external cameras caught every strange detail of its hull. The surface looked alive, shifting and rippling as if it were made of liquid metal. No windows, no visible seams, just a black, endless skin that absorbed the starlight. Every officer on the bridge felt it to pressure, heavy and cold, pressing against their chests. Some swore they could hear a low hum in their heads, like a distant heartbeat that wasn't their own. The comms officer's hand trembled as he reached for his console. "It's hailing us," he said. Varric's eyes narrowed. "Put it through." A burst of static filled the bridge, followed by silence. No words, no voice, just breathing, slow, steady. Then the static cut off. "It's gone again," the sensor officer said, his voice shaking. Varric stood still, his mind racing. This was no pirate craft, no alien trader. This was something built for one purpose. Whatever that purpose was, it wasn't friendly. "Stay sharp," he ordered. "If it moves again, I want the lights flickered." And for the first time in his career, Captain Varric felt real fear, because in the reflection on the glass before him, just for a second, he saw the shadow. Moving inside the ship, the Obsidian Crown's bridge was tense. The strange vessel was gone again, lost somewhere in the black sea of space. The crew scanned every frequency, every wavelength, but it was like chasing a shadow that didn't want to be found. Captain Varric's eyes stayed on the viewing window. He wasn't looking for the ship, he was listening to the silence, to the way it seemed heavier now. He had fought enough battles to know the quiet before the strike was the most dangerous. The first officer, Commander Rillen, stepped closer. "Sir, if I may, I've heard stories about something like this." Varric turned slowly. "Stories?" Ryland's voice was low, as if he didn't want the others to hear. "From the war with the humans. Old stories, they say. There was a ship, one ship, built in secret by human engineers no one ever found again. It was called the Ghost of Andromeda. They said it could move without engines, disappear without a trace, strike and vanish before the enemy even knew what happened." Varric's eyes narrowed. "You believe children's tales?" "I didn't," Rillen said. "Not until tonight." Varric looked away, back to the empty stars. He remembered the war with humanity well. The Empire had been confident. Humans were scattered, fractured, fighting each other as much as the Empire. But they fought with a desperation unlike any other species. Even when outnumbered, they didn't surrender. Even when beaten, they came back. And then, in the final years of the war, the strange reports had begun. Whole fleets gone missing in uncharted sectors, survivors whispering about a black shape in the void. The Empire's command dismissed it as propaganda, a fear tactic. But now, Varric wasn't so sure. A voice from the sensor station broke the silence. "Captain, I'm getting faint residual energy readings from the last location of the unknown." "Ship." Varric's head snapped toward him. "Source." The officer hesitated. "It's not any drive signature in our database. And sir, it's human, at least, partially." Murmurs spread across the bridge. "Humans, out here, impossible." The humans had no presence in this region. Or so the Empire believed. Varric felt a cold knot form in his chest. "Track it." "I don't care how faint. Follow it." The fleet adjusted course. Massive warships turned in unison, engines roaring in the void. Still, there was no sign of the phantom vessel. It was always just ahead, like a shadow leading them somewhere. Hours passed. The crew grew restless. Some officers began whispering, among themselves, superstitions about cursed ships, about vessels crewed by the dead. Varric ignored them, but deep inside, he felt it too. This was not a normal enemy. This was a predator choosing its moment. Then, without warning, the readings stopped. The trail was gone. Varric's hands tightened behind his back. Where is it? Nowhere, sir. It's gone again. But Varric knew better. If the ship had wanted to escape, it would have left long ago. It was still here, watching, testing them. A memory stirred in his mind, an old intelligence briefing from years ago, back when the human war was still young. A captured human officer had spoken under interrogation. He had been beaten, starved, yet his eyes still held defiance. When Varric had demanded to know about this so-called ghost ship, the human had smiled through bloodied lips and said, "It's not a ship, it's a promise." At the time, Varric had thought it was meaningless bravado. Now, he wasn't so sure. The com station lit up suddenly. "Sir, we're receiving something." The bridge fell silent. A voice, distorted and cold, filled the air. "You have entered our graveyard. Leave now." Every officer froze. The voice was human, calm, certain, not a plea, but a command. Varric stepped forward. "Identify yourself." Silence. Then, almost like a whisper, "You have been warned." The channel cut. No trace. The fleet's tactical display flickered, showing dozens of false readings, ghost images of the strange vessel appearing and disappearing all around them. The ships scrambled to adjust, weapons armed, but the targets were never real. The Phantom was toying with them. Ryland's face was pale. "Sir, if this is the ghost, it's not just here to scare us. It's here to decide who lives and who dies." Varric didn't answer. He stared at the tactical map, at the endless black around them. He thought of the human wars, of how close the Empire had come to losing, and how badly they had underestimated their enemy. And now, standing in the shadow of this impossible vessel, Captain Varric realized something chilling. Humanity hadn't been defeated. They had been waiting. Somewhere out there, the ghost ship's crew was watching them, judging them, and perhaps deciding whether this would be the place where the Empire's pride finally died. The obsidian crown floated at the center of the Imperial fleet like a black jewel, surrounded by hundreds of warships. They were the pride of the Empire, fast, powerful, and armed with weapons that could tear a city from the surface of a planet in seconds. Yet every captain in the fleet knew something was wrong. The Phantom ship was nowhere on the sensors, but everyone felt it. It was like a presence in the room that you couldn't see but knew was watching you. The crew spoke in low voices, movements, sharp and uneasy, as if a single wrong word might bring the shadow back. Captain Varric stood over the central display table. His officers were running simulations, trying to predict where the unknown vessel would appear. None of them could agree. "It's impossible," one officer said. "It's like it's not obeying normal space. If it can move like that, we can't trap it." Varric's eyes stayed locked on the holographic map. Everything can be trapped. Everything can be killed. We just have to make it show itself. As if the ship had heard him, the lights on the bridge flickered again. Energy surge. The sensor officer shouted, "Sector 12, wait now. Sector 3, no, it's behind us." The holographic display exploded with red alerts. "They're playing with us." Rillin muttered. "VARIK snapped. All ships, weapons ready. On my command, concentrate fire on any confirmed position." The fleet shifted, turrets swiveling, energy cores glowing like miniature suns. The void around them seemed to hold its breath. Then, without warning, the Phantom appeared directly in the middle of the Imperial formation. Gasps filled the bridge. The ship's hull shimmered with an oily darkness that swallowed every bit of light. It made no sound, no visible movement, yet it cut through the empty space with the speed of a living thing. "Lock all batteries," Varric barked. Dozens of targeting systems locked on, and the fleet unleashed a wall of firepower. Bright beams and missiles screamed through the void, and passed straight through the ghost ship as if it wasn't there. What in the stars? The weapons officer choked. The Phantom didn't return fire. Instead, it simply glided past one of the escort cruisers. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, the cruiser vanished from the tactical display. No explosion, no debris, no damage reports. It was as if the ship had never existed. "Where did it go?" Varric demanded. The sensor officer's hands shook. "It's gone, sir. Not destroyed, just gone." Another flash of movement. Another Imperial ship vanished. Then another. The Phantom ship wove between them like a shark through a school of fish, erasing ships one by one. The fleet's formation broke apart in panic. "All ships, regroup," Varric shouted, but his voice was drowned in the chaos of incoming screams. Confused reports, desperate calls for help. On the Obsidian Crown, officers scrambled to track the Phantom's movements. It was too fast, too unpredictable. Every time they thought they had it cornered, it vanished from their screens, only to reappear somewhere impossible. Ryland's voice was low but urgent. "Sir, it's not random. It's targeting our weakest ships, first supply carriers, repair vessels. It's cutting the fleet's legs out from under us." Varric realized he was right. This wasn't some mindless terrorite strategy. Whoever was piloting that thing knew exactly how to dismantle a fleet without wasting a shot. Then the comes. Officer shouted, "We're receiving a signal from the Phantom." The bridge fell silent. The voice that came through was calm, cold, human. "This is your only warning. Leave this sector now." Varric stepped forward. "Identify yourself." There was a pause. Then, "You already know." The channel cut. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, without warning, the Phantom appeared directly alongside the Obsidian Crown. It was close enough now for the crew to see strange markings along its hull symbols that no one recognized, etched in patterns that seemed to shift when you looked at them too long. The hull seemed to drink in the light, a darkness deeper than the space around it. Varric met its silent stare through the viewing window. His instincts screamed at him to fire, to run, to do something, anything, but he stood frozen. And then, as silently as it had arrived, the Phantom drifted away, disappearing into the darkness again. The damage was done. 24 ships were gone. Not destroyed, erased. The Empire's finest fleet, humiliated and bleeding without a single shot fired in return. Varric clenched his fists. This wasn't over. The Phantom had made its first move. And now, he knew was waiting for him to make his asterisk. The Imperial fleet was no longer a wall of power. It was a broken scatter of frightened ships drifting in the void. The Obsidian Crown's coms were flooded with panicked voices, captains, shouting over each other, desperate for orders, desperate for answers. Captain Varric didn't answer them right away. His eyes stayed locked on the empty black ahead, where the Phantom ship had vanished once again. He knew it wasn't gone. It was still here. It was waiting. "Damage report," Varric said finally. The tactical officer's face was pale. "We've lost 28 vessels, sir. No wreckage, no survivors. It's like they stepped out of existence." Varric's jaw tightened. "And weapon status?" "All operational, sir. But it doesn't matter. We can't hit it. Every shot passes right through." The bridge fell silent. The reality was sinking in. This wasn't a battle, it was a hunt, and they weren't the hunters. Suddenly, the sensor alarms wailed. Contact. The officer shouted. Multiple no, everywhere. The tactical display lit up with dozens of phantom signatures surrounding the fleet. Each one matched the ghost ship's readings, each one moving like a predator circling prey. It's impossible, Rillen whispered. There can't be that many. Decoys, Varric said, though he didn't sound convinced. Stay calm, pick the real one. But before they could act, the first strike came. A light cruiser on the fleet's edge shuddered. For a split second, its hull warped and bent like liquid, then it was gone. No sound, no explosion, just gone. Seconds later, another ship vanished. Then another. The Phantom wasn't moving between them anymore, it was striking from multiple directions at once. Varric slammed his fist on the console. How is it doing that? The science officer's voice was tight. If it's human technology, sir, it might not be moving at all. It could be in more than one place at the same time. That's impossible. The officer met his gaze. So is everything else we've seen tonight. On the main screen, one of the phantom signatures broke formation and drifted slowly toward the obsidian crown. The closer it came, the more the stars around it seemed to fade, swallowed by the darkness of its hull. Ready weapons, Varric ordered. Sir Rillen said, firing won't work. We've seen it. Varric didn't look at him. Then we'll keep firing until it does. The fleet unleashed another storm of energy beams and missiles. Once again, the Phantom ignored them. The weapons passed through, harmless dot. Then, without warning, the ghost ship transmitted again. The voice was calm, emotionless. Your empire is fragile. Leave, or we will break it. Varric took a slow breath. And if we don't, there was silence for several seconds. Then this will be the last fleet your empire ever sends. The transmission cut. For a long moment, no one moved. The bridge crew watched as the phantom ship drifted closer and closer, until its strange, shifting hull filled the entire viewport. The crew could see the patterns moving across its symbols and markings that changed when you blinked, like they were alive. Varric felt something then, not fear, but a weight, a pressure in his mind. Images flashed behind his eyes. Burning cities, dead fleets, worlds left empty and cold. He knew, without understanding how, that these were memories. Memories the ship wanted him to see. And then the pressure was gone. The Phantom turned and began to move away, vanishing into the black. What's it doing? Rillen asked. Varric didn't answer. He already knew the Phantom wasn't retreating. It was giving them a choice, around. The fleet, the false signatures faded one by one until only the empty void remained. No sign of the ghost ship, no sign of the missing vessels, only silence. But in that silence, every officer felt the same truth. This wasn't over. The Phantom had shown them what it could do without even trying. If it came back in force, there would be no empire left to fight. The void was quiet again, but no one on the obsidian crown believed they were safe. Captain Varric stood at the center of the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. His officers waited for orders, every eye on him, every breath tight in their chests. The phantom ship was gone, but so were almost 30 Imperial warships. The best the Empire could field. Varric had fought enough battles to know when a fight could still be won. This wasn't one of them. All ships, he said at last, his voice low but steady. Prepare for retreat. Full burn, back to Imperial space. There was no protest. No captain argued. No officer hesitated. The entire fleet turned as one and began the slow, heavy run home. Engines flared against the darkness, leaving faint trails of light that vanished quickly into the endless black. For hours, no one spoke much. The crew worked in silence, scanning constantly, expecting the phantom to return at any moment. The tension was a rope pulled too tight, ready to snap. It never did by the time the fleet crossed back into Imperial-controlled territory. Some officers began to breathe easier, but Varric did not. He knew better. Predators didn't chase prey. That was already running. They waited until it came back. In the War Council chamber aboard the Obsidian Crown, the surviving captains gathered. Holograms flickered where others should have been. Ships and crews that no longer existed. Varric's voice carried through the chamber. What happened here will not be spoken of outside this room. The official record will say we encountered an unstable energy phenomenon. We will report heavy losses due to spatial collapse. Several captains exchanged uneasy glances. And the truth, sir? One asked quietly. Varric met their eyes, one by one. The truth is that the Empire has just seen a weapon we cannot fight. Not now, maybe not ever. And it was human. Murmurs filled the air. Many of the captains had fought in the human wars. They remembered the propaganda, the talk of humans as stubborn but primitive, dangerous, only because of their numbers. This didn't fit that story, Varric continued. This was no random encounter. It was a message, a warning. They let us live because they wanted us to. Next time, they may not. A silence heavier than space itself settled over the chamber. When the meeting ended, Varric stayed behind, standing at the viewport. Outside, the stars stretched in every direction, cold and distant. Somewhere out there, the phantom ship was moving. Again quiet, patient, unseen. He remembered the words the human voice had spoken. Your empire is fragile. Leave, or we will break it. He believed them. Weeks later, back on the Imperial capital world, the Council dismissed the incident as exaggerated. They approved the official report without question. The Empire's pride was unshaken in public. In secret, however, intelligence divisions worked quietly, trying to find out where the humans were hiding their phantom fleet. There was more than one ship at all. They found nothing but rumors spread. Among the lower ranks, among traders in the outer colonies, the name Ghost Ship began to circulate again. Some claimed it could pass through solid matter. Others swore it could erase entire armies without firing a single shot. None of them knew the whole truth. 1 year later, Captain Varric, now promoted to Admiral, sat alone in his private quarters aboard a new flagship. He had not spoken openly of that night in deep space since it happened, but he still dreamed of the way the phantom ship had moved. The sound of that human voice, the feeling of something far older and deadlier than any fleet in the Empire. A small data chip sat on his desk. It contained the unedited sensor records from the battle, encrypted under his personal authority. Only he had access. Only he had seen the final frame. In that frame, just before the phantom vanished for the last time, a faint symbol had appeared across its hull clear for less than a second. It was a human symbol, and beneath it, in letters, unmistakable even across the gulf of space, were 3 words: "We are waiting." Varric closed his eyes. He didn't know if humanity meant it as a threat or a promise, but deep down he knew this. The next time the Empire crossed that line, in the stars, the ghost ship would return, and when it did, there would be no retreat.